Yes, that is quite a tense atmosphere here. It's great. A warm welcome to you all to the presentation of 22QMedia, our project. What we have been doing here have brought to life since the beginning of 2020. With Mia Wiebke on my left and Hannah on the other side. And today we're going to tell you a bit about what we're doing in this project. My colleague is sitting behind the control desk right now at the buttons that mean the world. This is Christian over there, was called earlier. I'm Andreas. We're both media educators by trade. We're actually social pedagogues, but we started already during our studies somehow in the direction of media work, media pedagogy, media education, did projects and in 2019 we organized in Rothenburg and der Wumme with a group. There were already quite a few of the current members were already there. We made a small trailer for a cinema film.
Da waren auch schon etliche von den jetzigen Mitgliedern dabei. Haben wir einen kleinen Trailer für einen
a film about an unknown virus that threatens humanity.
Was die Menschheit bedroht.
And 3 months later came the first lockdown. Unfortunately, we didn't get the release for all the images we had there. That's why we were never able to release this film. So it was only shown again in the evening. Okay, very briefly, a few facts. So since the beginning of 2020, we've been doing the whole thing at this said meeting in Rothenburg. We sat down together with Thomas and Stefan in the evening and thought about it. What else could we do in this direction? And the result is currently around 12 young adults between the ages of 17 and 32, who meet with us in regular online meetings, usually always online. But recently we've been meeting more often a bit in presence. We then plan and discuss what we want to do next and what do we want to do. We have our own communication medium. It's called Slack. It's a kind of chat system where you can work on these topics that we discuss there. And we do public relations work for the organization and education about 22Q. Also, anyone who was involved in online topics have seen me or Christian and people from this group. We do the moderation and watch the chat, whether there are any questions to the speakers. And at the end of the day, we also record events. Today's event is difficult in that sense. Especially because it's a hybrid event. That means that what we have here on the cameras is being transferred to a Zoom conference. There are 5 people sitting there at the moment. I'll say hello at home on the screens. And they are also somehow interested in the topics, and that's why they watch us. So, these are not strangers, but also people from the We're Sin 22Q association. However, we are recording this talk for the YouTube channel.
Dann gibt's noch die Doku-Reihe Betroffene.
Then there's the documentary series, Affected Persons. That means we're doing 1 to 3 bus tours lasting a week. In other words, we go somewhere and I think Wiebke tells us a little bit about it, right now.
Yes, the bus tour. What is a bus tour? We get a van, which either Andy or Christian will pick up, and then we meet up at certain places. Now, for example, we were in Zeit. and drove around in the van, and then we interviewed Linda, for example. She's standing at the back of the camera and... Exactly. As I said, we drive around to different filming locations and film there, and then make the podcast episodes, which you can then listen to, when they are published on the 22 of every month. And then we're in a certain place. Now, for example, we were in Zeitz in an old pasta factory. That was where we had accommodation, and from there, as they say, we always go somewhere, and this year we're not just this one bus tour, but there are 3 bus tours planned. One in the summer, which goes to Bavaria. And the third, which goes where?
I think even to the north. But I'm not sure. I can only plan 2 weeks in advance.
Genau. Moment. YouTube mache ich.
These films that we record there, or the lectures here, they all go on the 22Q YouTube channel of We Are 22Q Association.
Von wir sind 22Q. Das ist so eins der Hauptinstrumente.
That's one of the main tools. So we are video people originally and think in pictures. And the stories from the bus tour are mainly film-based and are also intended to show a little bit the lives of those affected or their relatives, to get an understanding of it. What it means to be affected with the syndrome, for someone who doesn't even know what it is. We heard earlier from Hannah that even doctors sometimes don't know what it actually is. And that's what the association thinks, and so do we, that educational work should perhaps be done. At the moment, we are perhaps still seeing very positive cases, that people who are actually doing well are then recorded. Whether it's a Christian who is somehow touring the world as a bus driver, or currently Linda, who is super integrated and is coping with her life.
Super integriert ist und ihr Leben da meistert.
So it would certainly be nice too, if we could inspire people to say somehow, well, there are also situations where you're not doing so well, because otherwise you might paint a completely wrong picture in the public eye. And that's something we perhaps not necessarily want that either. So Hannah, who's talking about the podcast? Wiebke?
Genau, dann machen wir noch den Podcast.
Exactly. There is the 22QMedia podcast. And certain topics are also discussed. But there are also, for example, we now have a podcast about the bus tour, or also yes, what do we have now? For example, we have, I was also interviewed.
Exactly. We recorded an episode with you on the subject of depression. And the so-called Babel podcast, where we just chat away. That was on the first evening. We sat down in Zeitz and talked a bit about ourselves. What's actually on the agenda for the whole week is just a short episode. It's a nice view behind the scenes and shows how we are actually working together.
Or we have the episode where, for example, it's about a study of people with 22Q. We spoke to the head of research about her work. And then there is an episode on the topic of 22Q affected people starting families. We have a podcast episode, for example. So there are very many different episodes.
Ja, beim Aufnehmen ist da auch immer eine
when recording is also a live situation. In other words, when we spoke to the researcher from Halifax in Canada, that was a live broadcast to Canada. That looks like I'm sitting somewhere in my basement and Wiebke is sitting at her place in Hanover and Hannah is sitting in Dresden. And we are all connected together and then open up a language channel for the researcher from Canada and then we sit together and chat to each other. That's how it works, and it's recorded at the same time, edited again later and then scheduled for publication. Topics also include raising awareness of the syndrome, also letting those affected have their say, where they might otherwise have too little say, and also allow relatives to have their say. Participation in the communication process in the public sphere. And podcasts are always great because you are relatively free to organize it. So you can record it for as long as you want. You can also record as short as you want. And the fact that we are available on all podcast platforms. There is Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google, Amazon, Deezer everywhere.
Google, Amazon, Deezer, überall.
We are relatively free and unbound and can put out something. Current. I took another picture today of the statistics. Since the beginning, our podcast episodes have been listened to almost 1,300 times and we have published 15 episodes at the moment. So it's quite all right, I think.
Yes, I'm responsible for the Instagram account. We were thinking at the time how the association can get a little bit more attention, and then we thought to ourselves, yes, many people use Instagram and we already had a Facebook page. We just sat down together and then we've had it for a year, about a year and a half. Yes, we then created the Instagram account. Antonia and I run it. And at the same time also with Christian and Nicholas, they also look at it from time to time. And as you can see, we post the various events that are currently running or taking place. For the people who aren't there, we inform people about the story and post something there from time to time. Yes, exactly. And we've already got a relatively many followers.
Exactly. On the bus tour, we were able to celebrate an anniversary, 222 followers on Instagram. Yes, with a thank you video. It was a feverish rush until the 222 were full. We started at 217, I think. And then we kept checking. How many are there now? How many are there? We advertised on the way, told the people, hey, when you're on Insta, have a look at our page. And here we have a short slide. At the moment, this code still leads to our Film Reflex homepage. I made a page like this, where all the links are among each other, where you can find 22QMedia stuff. It won't be there much longer, according to the code, so the page will stay there. But you see, under the FLMR-FLX down there is a www.22q-media.de. This is the domain on which the website of the project will appear. And there you will also find the links to the various possibilities to follow. Yes. And that was actually the presentation. We got through it pretty quickly. But we have one more. And that's... Afterwards at 17:45 it can be seen by everyone on YouTube. So those who are not here on Zoom or sitting in this room, but for everyone who can somehow operate YouTube. We have scheduled the premiere for 17:45. We have a short compilation to show what happens on the bus tour. So there's always someone like Tino, perhaps, who is then assigned to film a few impressions and the making of. The whole thing was edited by Oliver Brenner, who unfortunately can't be here today. but we would like to show you now. We can watch it together, have a look together, if you feel like it.
Spruch des Tages?
Spruch des Tages, gut Ding will Weile haben.
Yes, that's it. That's what it looks like on such a bus tour. So I think you can already see that everyone is having a lot of fun and getting stuck in. I think it's a great video. So thank you for your attention. I have to get back to the podcast.